Greetings and welcome back to the lab. I've been away for a little bit. I've been kind of working on ideas for the next project, but I wanted to kind of give you an overall update on what's going on and start to introduce the new project and some of what I've been doing. So, number one, we've got this weird little contraption, which is basically just uh, it's a battery from we're going to call it a mini smoke machine. And just to avoid trouble, though I think that would be a really wasteful way to generate smoke. Anyway, I've got the battery hooked up to this. It's harvested from that. I've got all sorts of little adapters hanging around. Not all of them have the USB. They have other connections. Let's see if I can, well, that's actually just a sample board that I was playing with. And all of this goes together into a bigger project that I'm thinking about, which I will do a more formal introduction to. But it's going to be battery powered. It's going to have lights, and it's going to be self-contained with kind of a unique feature on how to power it. So, I mean, there will be batteries involved, but it won't look like it. That's kind of what I'm thinking my way through. Let's put some of that away. Meanwhile, I've been sort of practicing with some of the 3D printing. I've now found a way to do 3D printing where I don't have to send it off and wait for it to come back. If you look around in your local community, there might be a makerspace or other resources available where you can get to a 3D printer. Now, I'll also want to do a video on the real basics of 3D printing so you can understand kind of where to start and kind of how I got started. So I'll do that. That's coming up. But meanwhile, I did something like this, which I'm able to put on top of something else and then put some lights underneath it. And I'm calling it a projector, and it projects through these little holes up onto the ceiling. And that'll give you another sort of clue to what I'm working on. But I also have been doing some, I've recently done this odd thing. I'm calling it the Frankenphones, because this is actually a set of Bluetooth headphones that, for whatever reason, failed on me in the mode of not being able to turn on. Now, I took them apart, and I've managed to get them back together again. But I took them apart, and I was trying to figure out, okay, why is this happening? I just tried shorting across the two pins of the power switch just to see if it was a problem with the power switch itself. Nope, it wasn't. In fact, here is, didn't think that was going to stick to it. Here is the circuit board from inside. Here's your USB-C connector to charge it up. And here is the battery that I've harvested out of it. So you might be saying, well, wait a minute. If this is Bluetooth, what's powering it now? Nothing really powering it. I had another set of headphones that had terrible, this had really good sound, but the other set of headphones had terrible sound and it had a cord. So I basically figured out how to get the cord through what used to be the hole for the button for the power. And I just stuck the strain release through there, and it just happened to work out. I took out all the other buttons. That's why there's this whole gap here. And I don't think it's going to affect the bass response because the way these were set up, let me see if I can find it. Yeah. On each side, there is this used to be the hole for the USB-C, but there's also a port for a port for the bass sound. So the driver is isolated to the point of actually doing the bass through here. So I don't think having additional cavity in here really matters that much. And they do sound pretty good. But then that spawned another problem. What am I going to do? Where am I going to hang these things? So I started getting into the 3D printing thing, and this is half. And this is the other half of a clamp that I found on Thingiverse. And maybe what I can do is actually put a link down below. I still need to get the support material off of the screw, but the idea is that this will, if my hand was a table, it'll clamp onto the table like that, and then this screw goes in to clamp it. So let me see if I can't do this real quick. Let's see if I can just free it up without too much damage. I did print it in a lower resolution, and I've been learning things like you can print it at super high speed. That'll go a bit quicker, but the danger in doing that is you get failures, and I'll show you a serious case of failures in a second. But let's just see, does this actually screw in, or do I need to do some filing? Yeah, I think I'm going to have to refine this a bit. Oh, well, it's kind of going in. A little scrunchy. But it really only has to clamp on one time. Now there's a piece of the support material up here. Let's see if we can't cut that off as other things fall. And this is part of the reason why I'm doing this is I got so much stuff around here I've got to organize. I want to be able to hang things on the wall more efficiently, or whatever it takes to keep everything accessible in the lab. That is not the neatest. I'll probably sand that down, but you can see this should pretty much, I think once I screw it in a few times, it'll go a bit smoother because it'll sort of self-sand itself. Yeah, let me see. Yep. You can't see it, but I'm going to try and turn this and get it to a point where I can get it on the thing. And then this is the part where the headphones hang like that. So now I've solved that particular problem. So while I was at it trying to figure out, now this one I got, somebody else designed it and I downloaded it and printed it. I had to print it in 2 stages because there's 2 parts. And it probably took about an hour and a half, 2 hours of printing, something like that. So I've been learning things with prints like mistakes like this one, which I'll have to put it down here and zoom in post so you can see kind of what's wrong. It's all, the nozzle actually picked the item up and moved it over. It wasn't secured enough to the base, to the build plate. So that's what happens when that happens. And it happened to me twice, but that's because I was printing both of these at the same time. So, yeah, it was just weird. Then I went back and tried to do it again with another one. And this one, while it looks like it's actually okay, and it is kind of okay, this should be taller here. So that should be higher. So I went back and redesigned and came up with this as an alternative and also printed it at a higher quality. So this is, how can I describe this? Do I still have, okay, I'm going to need a screw to show you how this works. So let's get one out of here. Now, I also went and got a smaller version of these screws because these are 2.5. But the idea is this screw goes through here, but not in this direction. I'm only going in this direction, if it works. Checking it for the first time myself. But there's a little plug in here, and let me see if I can't put that down and then zoom in and bring the light down to it. You can get a little better view of it. Hopefully that's not blocking the camera. So this little plug here I need to get out so that I can actually put the screw through. The screw's supposed to go through this way. This will then go onto the wall, and I can then run cables around it. Give you an example. We use the headphones again. So if you can imagine that staying still, then I can wrap cables around it. And I can do it all with these circular ones if I wanted to, but then I was like, how am I going to do this in a corner without the cable possibly slipping off? And that's when it dawned on me I could do this with a square version. Same thing, it needs a plug knocked out of it here. That's all just part of the infill process because when it prints, it actually prints in that orientation. And actually, I'm looking to see if it, nope, it didn't get crooked on me. But This is the round one. There is a square one that doesn't have this extra little bit. And if you put it into a corner, how can I demonstrate that? Okay. We use this as corner of the room, and you can put it into the corner kind of like that. I'm hoping that'll come through somewhat from up above. So if you can see, you put the flat side against the other wall, you've got two walls now, and now what you've created is a channel along here for a cable. This particular one was a third version, not a revision from here to here. It's a third in the series. I've got a round, I've got a square, and I've got this one. Yeah, the idea with this one is, again, it's up against the wall. They're all the same thing where they're against the wall. But in this particular case, I could have cable running up the wall and have the connector pop out like that. So that if I need a USB power source for one of my projects, that takes care of that. So now I need to get these things knocked out and mounted to the wall. I'm going to have to figure that one out. If I can do that with... Oh, wait a minute. Maybe. I got the Dremel here. Let me get the light back in a better position. I wonder if this is the right size. Oh, that's almost perfect. I didn't want to mess with it too much. And if this gets too noisy, I will mute it. Yep. I think I managed to pop out the plug. So now there should be about a 5mm recess in there, all based on the screws that I was looking at. Here it is. So now this should just drop in. It's a little on the tight side, but I think we can make this work. Well, let me sort of point out. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to need to kind of ream that out a little bit, but the idea was supposed to be that this, once you put it all together and actually mount it to the wall, this head ends up just barely recessed in there, so it's a flush fit. So that was the idea. Now, I may need to slightly revise this because I printed it at a lower quality. The tolerances are not going to be the same. So maybe what I need to do is make the holes slightly bigger before I print any more of them. But I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get these things mounted to the wall and start managing cables, and I can start printing out more of these. These worked out a whole lot better than these, and I had one additional, where did I put it? One additional failure on that, but basically it had to do with, it was a problem with the printer. It wasn't a problem with my design. So that's kind of where we are. I've been working on this stuff in the background. That's why you haven't seen much of me. But the new project is coming up. There'll be a new video coming up on the real absolute basics of 3D printing, just if somebody's looking for a way to get started. And I think that's actually going to end up as the next video on the Bite Size Engineering channel. I have several different channels, and I'm trying to separate out all my videos to places where they make sense. So that's what's going on. That's what I've been up to. More coming soon. Thank you so much for watching.